Okay, so we're back here in our project and I'm just refreshing again. I'm back into my change working time and I'm going to set up a calendar. So as we said, you have the standard calendar, which is here, and you can put, if there's some event on, you can put an event into the standard calendar. So we'll just say that there is an event. So I'm going to say the holidays would be considered events. So I'm going to say St. Patrick's Day. Okay, and you would come along here and you would pick when St. Patrick's Day is. So it is always the 17th of March, as you know. So it put that in there and it ends on that day. So that means that day there will be nothing happening in the project in that day. If you had a holiday period, so we'll say we have our Christmas holidays. So we have our Christmas break, and say your company closes down for a couple of weeks over Christmas. So we will go to Christmas and we'll give people a break. So we will say that they're off from the 21st, we'll be very generous with them, and say they're off until we'll start them back on the 4th. Okay, so that's the Christmas break. So that's how you could add things to the standard calendar. Okay, so you're adding things to the standard calendar there. If you go to the Workdays tab, in here you will get, it's normally defaulting to Monday to Friday, 8 until 4 with an hour in between. But you can go in here to details and you can set it to be specific times. So at the moment it's on, you can see there set to these dates, that's the default, but you can change it to different times. So you could say, for example, that on Friday, in my calendar, that I'm going to leave the team off early, so they are going to be left go at 4 o'clock, 16:00, instead of give them an extra hour or whatever. And you choose OK to that. Now, the problem with doing that is that that's affecting every project based on the standard calendar. So a lot of the time in project management, what we end up doing is creating a new calendar, a calendar for that project, and then assigning that calendar to that project. So it just kind of makes it a little bit cleaner. So how you would do that is you would come up here. So here are your breaks. We leave those for the moment. So rather than using the standard calendar, you'd select the option Create New Calendar. It then asks you to give the calendar a name. So we'll say that this calendar was to do with the Lucerne project. So I'm going to call it the Lucerne calendar. Okay, and you normally just make a copy of the standard one. So now you have the Lucerne one. So you can now swap to the Lucerne calendar, and that is specific to that calendar. So the standard calendar has this information on it. This is the Lucerne calendar. Now, because we already typed in those two dates, they're coming in from the standard calendar. But if I just realized there I have a mistake with the word Patrick's. Okay, I'll just type that again. Okay, now, but in the Lucerne calendar, we'll say that we have, and in the example they give in the book, they have a staff morale day. So, okay, I haven't ever heard of one of those, but we'll follow the book anyway. So, so it's named, it's a staff morale day. So staff at morale event. And we pick the day that they're on that event. So it says in the notes here, looking on page 9 of your notes, that the event is on in January and it is on the 24th of January. Okay, it's a Sunday, so that shouldn't matter. But anyway, that wouldn't be I'm just going to leave it like it doesn't matter for the moment. That would possibly be a mistake. I should have picked a different day, but anyway, it doesn't matter. So that's the staff morale event. So the difference here now, guys, is that you're associating it with that calendar. Okay, so the Lucerne calendar has those 3 events associated with it. If I go back to the standard calendar, it has those 2 events, but the Lucerne one has those 3 events loaded, and you can see the staff morale event in there. So on your notes, you need to take note of that. That's important, because in the exam, a lot of the time, we ask you to change, to create a new calendar. So what you need to do is, on page 9, I see there's an option, create new calendar. Can I get you there? There's a big circle. Write the word exam down there. And if you want to write down, to make sure, this comes up in the exam, to make sure that if you are asked to create a new calendar, that you are pushing it into that you're taking the option create new calendar and okay, and you make sure that you select that calendar then. So looking at the notes, if I want to make a change to the Lucerne calendar, I have to be in the Lucerne calendar, and then you put the events in there. Okay, so on the notes down the bottom, how you do that is you can write down number 1, you go to your project tab, and you go to change working time. So to do this, we had to go to our project tab, we had to go to change working time. You either at that point create a new calendar, or else you go and you use the existing one. So that's depends on the exam I ask you. So number 2, you either create your own calendar, or sorry, you either make the change in your own calendar, or else you create a new calendar. Okay, so you can write down there number 2. So you make change in the standard calendar, okay, or else you create a new calendar. And if I ask you to make a new calendar, I'll give you the name of the calendar I want you to make. So if you are asked to create a new calendar, it is important that you make sure that you select the calendar that you've just created, because there's no point in you making a calendar called Lucerne and then going back and putting the information into the standard calendar. So just looking at, see again now, just showing you on the screen here the differences, between them. So make sure you're on the Lucerne calendar. So then you enter the details into the exceptions tab. So write that down on your notes in the call out on page 9. So you write the details into the exceptions tab. So, and normally we give you the details. We tell you set the following event, Christmas break, Easter break, or whatever the case is. Now, if there was an event that was reoccurring, so we'll say in the exceptions tab, there was something, say that every Monday there's an hour out because there's a staff meeting. So I'm going to say staff meeting. Okay, and down here you can put down here what the details are. So it's on Mondays. So I'm going to the event, or the whole thing isn't starting for a bit. So we'll say that it's starting, the project isn't starting for us. If you remember, we had the project start date at the 8th of January. So if we go up to the 8th of January, okay, so we'll say every Monday, which is the first Monday, is the 11th, and I want an hour taken off for a meeting. So what we would do there is I would select the event, which is the staff meeting. I would click on details, and when you click on details there, it gives you the reoccurrence. So when is this reoccurring? So I could say that it is recurring every day, every week. So I'm saying it's happening every week. It's happening on a Monday, and it's ending after, and we'll say the project is going to go on for 12 weeks or 15 weeks or whatever it is. You can actually pick on what date is it ending. So what that is doing is that is setting, now this isn't a time, that is setting that there'll be nobody working on the project for the first 30 Mondays or the first 12 Mondays or whatever the case is there. Or you can say by a particular date when it's ending there. So that's how you do a reoccurrence. So to do a reoccurrence on an activity, you click on the activity, you go to your details tab. So this is my Russian dolls again, details tab. You pick the reoccurrence sequence. In a lot of the cases, again, this comes up in the exams. It's a weekly occurrence. It affects every week on a Monday. It can end by a certain date, or we can ask you to end it by a certain time. Okay, so you need to write that down in your notes. So for reoccurring tasks, you select the details, and you can, again, there's a drawing, you can point an arrow up to your details up on the screen, the big the blue box on your notes, or the circle on your notes if it's not in color. And if you go up there, you can click on the details tab, and when you're in there, you will then go and put in the details, the reoccurring details. So you pick whether it's a weekday or a day or whatever it is, and that's automatically in there. So again back to this point again, make sure you're on the correct calendar. So this is the Lucerne calendar that I'm working on here. Okay, so that's okay. So everyone should be okay with that. So that's changing your working time, and that's something you'd normally do at the start of a project, where you call out the dates where people won't be available. Okay, the next thing we're going to do is we're going to, we said already, it's very important when you're printing out reports and stuff for this system that you understand that you understand exactly you know what project it is from the perspective of headings and stuff. So to do that, we need to go into the property titles. Okay, so how we do that is we have to give a project its own title. At the moment, this is just called Simple Plan. That's the name of it. That's not going to print anywhere. So how you do that is you go to File and you go to Info. And when you go to Info, now this is our Russian dolls, if you go over to Project Information and you go to Advanced Properties, here's where you type in that information. Okay, so I'm going to take you back now again. So I want somewhere that when I print any of my material, that it's going to be printed out on the system or on any notes, etc. So how I embed that, so naming the project is not enough. How I embed it is I go up to File, I go to Info, I go over to Project Information, Advanced Properties, and in here you write in the information that you need. So in our example on page 10 of the notes, it says put the subject line as new book launch schedule. Okay, we're going to put the company as Lucerne Printing or Lucerne Publishing to give them the correct name. Sounds much more grander. Okay, and we are going to put the comments as new children's book for spring release. Okay, and I'm going to choose OK. Okay, so that will mean now that in future when I go to print anything, that information will show up. A lot of the time what I get you to do in the exam is I get you to put yourself as the author. So I'd ask you to put in R00, your student number, whatever that is, and your own name, and that will automatically pop up there as well as the author of the project. Okay, so on page 10, you need to write that down. So number 1, you select File. Number 2, you select Info. Number 3, so when you go to File and Info, you have to go over to under the drop down for Project Information. So you go to Project Information drop down. And number 4, you select Advanced Properties. And once you're inside in the Advanced Properties, you come to your summary task and you put the information into the summary task. Okay, so we are now ready to type tasks into Microsoft Project. Okay, so we're looking at creating tasks. Now in your exam, you will be starting on a blank project, and we'll be talking later on about work breakdown schedules and stuff, but you will be typing tasks in. So the first thing I normally do is, okay, so if you take what we've done now, we've given our project a name just for saving it on the machine, and we've gone into our project info details, and we have put in just more information about the project, the dates or the company, etc., for printing purposes. And we've gone into our change working time, and we've put whatever details we needed in here into whatever project is going to be associated with that project. Okay. Okay, now, so there's one more step here. So even though you have two projects put in, two calendars put in here, okay, so you have the Lucerne put in here and you have the standard one put in here. The system, while you can move between each one of those, okay, you can move between each one of those and it'll change down here. If you want to associate one with the project, you have to go back to your project information and pick which one you're associating with the project. Okay, so what I will do actually is I'll get you to write that. We're going to turn back the page, sorry. We're going to go back here to page 9 of your notes. And on page 9 of your notes, you can just write a note there. So how you link the calendar with the project. So you're after creating a calendar, a non-standard calendar. So you're writing a heading, how to link like a non-standard calendar, because it's the standard one is the one that's automatically linked with the project. So how you do that is after you've created it, in project, under change working time, you go to your project tab you go to something called project information, and then you select under the calendar, you select the calendar, the relevant calendar, whatever that calendar is. So in this case, we just make you select the Lucerne calendar. So you select your relevant calendar and off you go. And that normally comes up in the exam as a separate question. So the first, one of the questions would be create a new calendar called blah, blah, and enter the following details in the calendar. So I will check, have you created the calendar? So to check that, I will go into your project information, and I will just check, okay, has he or has she created this calendar? Have they put the events into the calendar? Yes, they have. Next question, associate the calendar with our event. So you would have to go into project information and make sure you select that calendar. So that is the calendar that's now associated with the project. Okay. Now, so just to take a break now what we've done. Okay, so now we are ready to start putting in tasks into the calendar.